Hi there, this is a cry for help, please. I'm requesting Conspiracy Cats, can you please?
When you scroll, you see when.
Today I received an email from one of many FLERFs that I have included in my videos. He was upset about being called a clown. He thought I had more when I said he couldn't handle a camera. I was also a snob who thought I was better just because I work as a photographer. Snob. I have been working as a photographer and filmmaker for over 30 years. It should probably mean that I know more about photography than most people. In the same way that someone who works as a painter is better to paint than I am. What you do a lot you often get good at. This FLERF also has a hard time understanding what I'm criticizing. This video will be the answer he gets. Here I will try to point out the common problems with videos and photographs that FLERFs usually creates. Let's take Observable Reality as an example. He is a typical FLERF who tries to prove that the Earth is flat as a pizza, using a Nikon P1000. The entire video is 1 minute long. I comment the video afterwards.
I was just over by these poles out in the water. These poles are, there's a boat launch there, and so these poles are so boats can come in, I think, through the 2 poles on the left and then through the 2 poles there in the middle, and then that's how they get in without bumping into things, I think. But anyways, I stood over by those poles, one of those poles, and I would say they're less than 20 feet tall. And then the poles on the right, I should have stood over by them. They weren't sticking up out of the water that much. And then that slab of concrete in the middle was the boat launch. So those poles I think are less than 20 feet. I stood next to one. It's definitely, I think, less than 20 feet tall, and that's right around 7 miles away, maybe just under. That's the old Vantage Highway.
I'm starting to comment on the end of the video. He ends at the camera's maximum wide angle. This gives the illusion that things are much further away than they are. Quite funny that wide angle is so popular with FLERF. Then they usually dismiss images that show that the Earth is round with them taken at a wide angle. Here is the difference between the maximum wide angle of P1000 and the degree of magnification of the human eye. However, we have a wider field of view than the camera, for the simple reason that we have 2 eyes, the camera has 1. Here he has chosen to film something as far away as possible. He focuses on what he calls pools. And they claim he sees them in its entirety. The building in the background then, which is in the water. The video is shaky and blurry. Okay, it's a FLERFs video. Why do all FLERFs have to select items far away? You do not have to film things 10 kilometers away to show that the Earth is curving. Do these oil rigs look familiar? Yes, they are the black swan that many FLERFs call the globe killer. The difference with this video is that it keeps high quality. But high quality is nothing a FLERF will use. This is how FLERFs thinks a good image looks. It is ignored that most of the oil rigs are distorted. Very strange. There are plenty of oil platforms, wind turbines, and other good pictures and films from all over the world. Why do you have to choose bad pictures of these? Or why not take their own pictures and videos? In many cases, it is probably because they cannot handle a camera, or think that a mobile phone is a scientific instrument. Like, for example, Sleeping Warriors. Now we take another look at Wide Awake, which was named Clown of the Week last Friday.
Same thing that's going to happen here. I'm actually going to their Hudson Beach condos, which is 10.74 miles, I believe, from the last time that I did a video about this. And what you can actually see is you can see the compression of all these different stories, how it gets compressed the closer you get to the water. So not only is the magnification happening, but there's also compression happening, which occurs through these weather conditions or the smearing effect. And this is what most people that believe in the globe will overlook and not even think about. Again, here's my boat. That's where we were set up by that pole that was there.
So what's the problem with this video? The lock can be made very long. Partly it is the handling of the camera, but also the limitations that the Nikon P1000 has. Pans. How often do you see it in a movie or on TV? Here he also does it with maximum zoom. With the cheap tripod he uses, it will be shakes. To get this stable, it requires a tripod that costs many times more than wide awake's camera. To prove something, these types of sequences are totally useless. Use of zoom. Shaky and hard to watch. Add very little to the video. In this case, the same problem as many videos. The use of maximum wide angle deceives the viewer. A better solution is to use two images to show the distance.
Because the visibility really wasn't very good on December 4th.
Yes, atmospheric conditions, weather, and light can make it impossible to photograph or film what you want to show. But why try to prove that the Earth is flat under difficult conditions? You should reasonably choose a day with minimal problems. Otherwise you only show the effects of atmospheric conditions, not the shape of the Earth. If we look at light, the P1000 has very difficult to perform well in low light. Let me explain why. Some technical facts I intend to focus on. Sensor and the lens. To create an image in a camera, a certain amount of light is required. There are three factors that determine how much light the camera receives. Shutter speed, how long the camera lets in light. The aperture, which determines how much light you let in. And ISO, which is light sensitivity. Let's start with the aperture. P1000 has a maximum aperture of 2.8 at maximum wide angle and 8.0 at maximum zoom. The scale is a bit illogical, the lower the number the larger the aperture. On a professional lens, you usually have the same maximum aperture regardless of how much you zoom. What is the problem with this on the P1000? If the light is poor, the camera will perform worse the more you zoom. If you have to go from aperture 2.8 to 8, you have to change something else to get enough light to the camera's sensor. What you have to choose from then is shutter speed and ISO. Let's move on to shutter speed. How shutter speeds work I illustrate with some sports pictures I have taken. A fast shutter speed freezes motion and makes it easier to hold the camera steady. In this picture you can clearly see this on the snow dizzying around the skier sticks. Same on these surf pictures. Here the wave and the movement of surfers have frozen. What happens then with a long shutter speed? This picture of Dario Calonga I chose to include a long shutter speed. To freeze Dario, I followed him with the camera throughout the exposure. A technique that requires some training, but gives the effect of a blurred background and that what you photograph is better seen. With a long shutter speed and a lot of zoom, no big motion of the camera is needed to create a large movement of the subject. Just like with the leverage effect. To hold a long lens camera on a tripod with long shutter speeds, ordinary amateur tripods do not work. The slightest puff of breath will shake the camera and destroy the pictures or video. To awake zoom and pan at maximum zoom as wide. Even though he has the camera on a tripod, it is stupid. The slightest movement of the camera produces powerful shakes. In an upcoming movie, I will address the fact that the P1000 has one of the market's smallest sensors. And what significance it has. I want to be clear that the P1000 is a good amateur camera in relation to its price. Provided it is used correctly. But it is purely stupid to believe that it is a scientific instrument. A scientist would buy a microscope at a hobby shop. I hope this video was interesting and that it gave you some new knowledge. If you have questions about this, please visit my forum. Address into my website in the description. There I gladly answer questions about photography and filmmaking.